Cork Today on C103.
According to the domestic violence organisation Women's Age, stalking should be made a specific criminal offence because it seems a growing number of young women have been terrorised via text message or on social media sites. Joining me from Women's Age, their director, Margaret Martin. Good morning to you, Margaret.
Hi, Trish.
You're welcome to the programme. Now, at the moment, is there any legislation governing stalking or this cyber stalking, which seems to be the new thing?
Well, I think what there's a piece of legislation that's called the Non-Fatal Injuries Against the Person Act, which is a bit cumbersome in its title, but if you read it, it looks like it should provide, it deals with stuff like harassment and that, and it looks like it should be quite an effective piece of legislation, but it's very cumbersome, I suppose, and we find that women generally aren't able to avail of protection under it. The other thing about it is, if you think of what's happened in terms of social media and media generally, there's been, kind of incredible developments over the last couple of years. So that legislation anyway is out of date, and we need something that's much more up to date, because what we find is with women who are being abused, the abusive partners sometimes are very good at getting access to all sorts of different new forms of technology to keep them under surveillance, to get more information on them, etc. So that needs to be updated. And then the other thing that we were highlighting really was that particularly for younger women who are in dating relationships and who are not living with a partner or have a child in common with a partner, they currently can't avail of the current domestic violence legislation, and that is specifically designed to deal with domestic abuse, which is very similar to a lot of things. It's very unsimilar to a lot of things. Most crimes are something that's happened. You're mugged in the street, your bag is stolen, your house is broken into, whatever it is. But the thing with domestic abuse and domestic violence, it tends to be something that is a pattern. So it has happened in the past, but it's also likely to happen in the future. So the pieces of legislation that are there actually acknowledge that and protect you into the future with safety orders and barring orders, etc.
And what type of stalking are we talking about? I mean, what form is it taking that you're hearing about from these young women?
Well, what we're hearing about is, I suppose, we're hearing about some of the kind of things that we would have heard about in the past, where somebody, seems to be literally stalking in terms of physically following somebody. When they leave college, they leave work, they go somewhere, and they go to the gym or something, and this can be a current partner sometimes, or it can be an ex-partner. And that, I suppose the other things, what we're hearing an awful lot of women talking about is what we're calling digitally assisted stalking. So that all of the kind of current media that are available, like mobile phones, Facebook, computers, the ways of connecting to people, those are being used then to gather information on the woman and to stalk and harass her. So, I was reading something the other day that I was quite shocked by. It was there's a very interesting work that's been done in the UK. There's a network for surviving stalking, and they worked with Women's Aid in the UK. A woman called Jennifer Perry pulled together a guide that's really good. But she was saying that when a woman is being stalked, there will probably be up to 30 other people who are being stalked as part of that, and that's friends and families. So if the woman, closes down her Facebook account to try and keep information out of a stalker or an abusive partner's access, that person then is going to perhaps go on. They know this person. They know who her friends are. They know who her family is. And the problem with something like that is you don't have to go in as yourself. You can go in under any sort of assumed name, and you can get information. So if you're trying to stalk somebody, and unfortunately, what we hear young women talking about very often is they may have been going out with a guy for a remarkably short period of time. It might be only 3 months or something, but still a year later they are trying to extract themselves completely from this relationship that they've made it very clear that they don't want to be in. So he knows who, her sisters are, her friends are, what she likes, and if he's, keeping an eye on their Facebook and what they're doing, he can guess that, well, the chances are she's going to show up
at that party, or
film. She may be going to, all her friends are going to this party, they're going drinking in this pub, they're going for a meal in this restaurant, they're all going to the gym, they're going for a weekend. So it can be very creepy. And then I think the other thing that is very insidious is the amount of texts that women get, and sometimes it's the volume, and it's just the little bits of information that he's letting her know that he knows. And it can be very simple things. One of the things I would kind of illustrate is, that if it's a cold day here in Dublin today, I don't know what it's like in Cork, but it could be something as simple as a woman just getting a text saying, "Really like your new red coat," and she's suddenly going,
"Yeah, he spotted me this morning. Yeah,
is he following me? How did we know that?"
Yeah.
So and yet she feels powerless to do anything with that, because what do? You go into your Garda station. That's why we're pressing for this legislation to be in place, so that they can do something about that. Now, the phone companies do provide a whole range of different things, and it's important that women keep that information, because it's not the one-off things. Your instinct is to delete it. You're so frustrated, you're so angry, and you're so scared a lot of the time you just want to get rid of it. But it's important to keep those kind of things, and there are apps out there that can gather that without you actually ever getting it. And the other thing is that
But you can't exactly go into a Garda station with that.
No, you can't, and that's why the legislation absolutely has to change. And what we're looking for is that it's a specific offence in itself, but then it's also considered as a ground for securing some sort of a safety order, etc. Because it can make a woman's life hell, because she doesn't know who's watching her, where she should go, and she did already feel isolated. She's trying to get back and connected with everybody, and it's really very difficult, and it's so insidious, and it's very hard to talk about, because people say, "Oh, so you're being stalked? Like, is this woman paranoid or something?" So we really need to I suppose, talk about this more and realise that this is making so many women's lives absolutely miserable.
Yeah, because
frightening them.
I'm assuming, because the fact you're highlighting it, you're obviously seeing an increase in calls to women's aid on this issue.
Yeah.
But I'm also assuming, Margot, that there are others who are remaining silent, who probably don't even realise that this is abuse.
Well, I think for a lot of women, they I suppose the way they might describe it is that they're having problems making it clear to this ex-partner that they're breaking up. And they maybe think that they're not explaining it clearly enough. But what's happening is he's not accepting the message, and that I suppose sometimes it can just feel like it depends what way he's responding. A lot of women will get a lot of threats, but if he's saying things like, "I love you so much, I really can't imagine my life without you," that she may feel that a sense of responsibility. He's trying to tap into an emotional guilt. So a lot of women would start to talk about it, and then perhaps when she starts to get involved with somebody else, it becomes even more problematic. But people very often who are close to women that they care about sometimes can see because they haven't been enmeshed in the relationship in the same way. Women sometimes will be told, if I'm going to kill myself. There's so much fear about male suicide. That's a really strong trigger that nobody wants to feel that they're going to contribute to something as drastic as that. So there's all sorts of manipulation and all sorts of things going on within this.
And the flip side is we've seen so many women killed in this country by partners and ex-partners. I mean, that's the real worry.
It is really, really frightening, and I think what part of our reason for highlighting this is it's a phenomenon, it's a growing phenomenon, but it's a very serious phenomenon. So that it's something that needs to be taken very seriously, and the legislation, we're pleased that the government has made a commitment to doing a review of the domestic violence legislation, and there's a number of things that need to change, and this is one of them. And we've done some legal research on this, and we've come up with some ideas of things that have been effective in terms of other jurisdictions, and we fed that into the to the Minister and to the Department of Justice and to CUSC, and we're trying to do more work on that in terms of briefing politicians and lobbying on it to see that it is something that's addressed. And because the reality is, as you say, if you go into a Garda station, their primary job is law enforcement, so they have to have the legislation there to be able to do something about it. And the other thing is that some of these things are easier to identify than other things that may be happening in an abusive relationship. So the more you can actually act on, if you have a lot of texts, and as I said, women can be absolutely bombarded and feel completely overcome with the amount of texts that they're getting and not even know where to begin. So part of what we're saying is, look, Women's Aid is here. You have really good domestic violence services down in Cork. So, there's help out there.
Use them, because I know you've also you've launched an awareness campaign called Two Into You. It's an online.
It is an online one, and again, it's really what we're very concerned about is that young women are able to, if they feel uncomfortable at something, that they can get out as soon as they start to feel uncomfortable, or they at least have a space to explore, is this relationship healthy or is it not? So on that Two Into You website, what we have is we have a relationship health check, and women can go in of any age, but it's primarily targeted at younger women, so it's we're promoting it through social media and that, and do a relationship health check. And we've been doing it now for the last 2 years. And while we were running those campaigns, we were getting about 500 hits a day. So it's obviously an issue that is very close,
to a lot of women.
To an awful lot of women in terms of concerns for themselves and their friends. And particularly for younger women, if you get involved in a relationship, the earlier you can get out. And as I said, sometimes getting out is not easy, and women need to be supported around that. But the earlier you can get out, the better it's going to be, rather than getting involved in a relationship. And for I suppose some of the things that would concern us is we've been dealing with this issue for 40 years. We're dealing with women who are in relationships who are in their 60s, their 70s and their 80s. They didn't know there was any help there. It's so sad to listen to a woman who's in her 70s, who's been living with 50 odd years of abuse, and who's really, so deep into it at that point that it's really great that she does make that contact, but not, to having lived through that time and not know that there was help out there. That's one of the things that at the very least we need women to know is, if you're having a problem, there's a service there. We have a telephone line that's free, that's confidential. It's available from 10 in the morning to 10 in the evening every single day of the week. And it's a space for you to use to talk about what's happening to you, because a lot of women will start a conversation like, something happened over the weekend and I'm not quite sure what I think of it. So it just gives you that space to talk something out. And sometimes once you can make sense of it yourself, then you're on the road to doing something about it. But when you're holding on to it in your head, it's hard to do that.
Are you seeing an increase in domestic violence, or is there just a greater awareness of services like yours?
I wish I knew the answer to that one, because it's really difficult. It's, certainly what we see is that when we get media coverage, that we see an increase in the level of calls that we get. So, that can be that once somebody knows the service. And the last time we did a big campaign, we found that most women who contacted us actually contacted us on the day they got the telephone number. So they, it was something that they wanted to act on straight away. So, that kind of promotion of the fact that there is help there, that there's information. We have loads of really good information that we've pulled together around social media, around how to protect yourself, your computer, your phone. Your Facebook is much more problematic, but just having a look at those. And that guide that I was talking about in the UK, we have that on our website as well. So if you don't even want to talk to somebody, you can go onto the website and have a look at some of the stuff that's there and see, is it useful to you, and what maybe you could do to improve your own safety.
Okay, and your website is, website address?
There's two. There's the Women's Aid one, which is women'said.ie, which you'll get into very easily, and then Two Into You is the relationship health check.
And it's the number two into.
It's the number two. It's the figure two, and then IN. The figure two, and then you.
You, okay. And your helpline number, Margaret?
It's 1-800-341-900.
1-800-341-900, and we'll put that up on our Facebook page as well. Listen, Margaret, pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for that. Continue good luck with the work of Women's Aid, and thanks for joining us. Bye bye. Margaret Martin there, Director of Women's Aid. Once again, that number, if you are suffering from domestic violence, or even what Margaret was talking about, the stalking, if you're worried in any way, 1-800-341-900.
Get in touch with Cork Today on our 24-hour comment line. Just call 022 42856 and leave your message. Cork Today on C103.